As someone who has applied for several scholarships and have won over $100,000 worth of scholarships, this is something I can tell you for free. Your references matter. A recommendation letter can either break or make your application. And so many students make so many mistakes when choosing references. And so in this video, I'm going to be showing you the mistakes you should be avoiding when choosing references, how you should be choosing references. I'll be showing you my actual references to show you, how your references should also be describing you more personally. If you get or use generic references for applications, you're not going to stand out. So stay tuned to the end. So let's get right into the mistakes. And one of the common mistakes is not knowing the difference between a professional reference or academic reference. Different applications, different scholarship bodies, they would usually state the type of references that they want. And so this is a quick summary of the difference between like a professional reference and an academic reference. Let's say, for example, if you're applying for the MasterCard scholarship, during the scholarship application process, they would ask you to submit a reference that could speak to your community involvement, your experience, your leadership, and all of that. So that's usually professional based. However, when you're applying to the school directly, they would ask for like academic reference. So who can speak to your academic and intellectual abilities? So knowing the two differences also helps you to decide what sort of references to reach out to provide, because you need people who can speak to these things. Another mistake that I see students make is not giving their referees enough context. So you reach out to someone that, oh, you need a reference from them. But again, that is all of the information that you provide. Providing context on the type of opportunity that you're applying for is very important, because you also want them to tailor whatever reference that you're providing to that. So, for example, you would want to share things like your academic CV. You want to share details about the opportunities, such as the mission and the vision of the organization. But most importantly, key points that you want them to reflect in that reference. So, if a scholarship is asking for someone who has lots of leadership, volunteering experience, lots of impact, you don't want to choose a reference who can speak to that, because again, your essays, your academic CV, your references, they should all be telling the entire story about you, and they should all be coherent. Personally, in some cases, I have actually provided like a draft of the reference letter to the person. Again, it saves them time, and it also helps you like include key pointers that you want reflected in the reference letter. So always provide enough context as much as possible, because your references need to understand what your goal is, your achievements, and the story your application is telling, so that they can tailor their references appropriately. Another mistake is randomly picking anyone. I think this one is a given, but sometimes people are so bent on picking references who have big names in quotation, but will not actually have the time to provide like a detailed reference for you. And make sure that you're picking someone who actually knows you and can speak to you as a person. Let's talk about how you can identify great referees. And number one, which I already talked about, is knowing what narrative you're trying to pull. So what are you trying to say about yourself, and who can validate that? You've highlighted so many great examples in your essays or in your academic CV. Who is that person that can validate all of the things that you have said? Another key thing to note is, although you don't want to be stuck on pursuing big names as references, you also want to provide references that have credibility and relevance. So they have to be relevant to the work that you've done. So don't randomly pick like a family member or something to write a reference for you. For some applications, they would ask you to provide like email addresses of the references. Again, make sure that you're presenting like an official email address. So you shouldn't be using Gmail or Yahoo Mail, but it should be like an organizational email. Again, credibility. Another thing is, sometimes they also ask that, the referees give you the letter for you to submit. And in that case, make sure that you're submitting letter headed letters. And in addition, they should be stamped if that is available. If your reference doesn't have like an official letter-headed letter, I would say at minimum there should be like an official stamp in the letter. And the third thing is, make sure that your references are available. So again, you can't tell someone to provide a reference to you 1 week to the deadline and expect that they would give you the best reference. Whenever you're applying for opportunities, give your referees time to actually respond. I would say at minimum 3 to 4 weeks, they should already know that you need a reference for them, and prepare them strategically. One of the hacks that I have used in the past that has consistently worked for me is, drafting that letter, that initial letter, with all of the key things that I want included and send it over to them because then it reduces their workload. So I'm going to be showing you an example of references that I submitted when I was applying to the University of British Columbia in Canada and also for the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship. This is recommendation letter 1. And so like I said, letter-headed paper, organization, or email, it should be there. It just makes it all look more legit and credible. One of the things I always tell people that you should include when writing references or when your reference is writing about you is for them to talk about how long they've known you and in what capacity that they've known you. And so you could see in the first paragraph, they did mention how they got to know me through the university. And the emphasis of this letter was about like my community involvement and my leadership. They were able to speak to specific aspects of the various positions that I've held when I was in university as well as outside the university. And your references should be able to speak to specific examples, like specificity, it is non-negotiable. So they should be able to speak to specific examples and specific experiences. And mind you, some of the things that I hear already are things that were already highlighted in my academic CV and also in some part of my essays. And so the reference or my referee is able to corroborate all of those stories and all of those things that I've put in other parts of my application. Important part of providing references is your reference providing a vote of confidence of why they believe that you're the right person or you're a good fit for the scholarship, the position, or whatever. And so you could see like in that second to last paragraph, my referee is able to talk about why they think that I'm a good fit for the scholarship. The referee is able to speak to specific qualities that I possess that makes me fit. Because again, I am applying for a master's program and this scholarship is supposed to support the master's program. So the reference is able to speak to like those specific like qualities or competencies that, you know, is required at the master's level to succeed and how I possess that. So let's move on to recommendation letter number 2. And so again, the referee has this on like a letter-headed paper, and then they go on to also like, you know, introducing what capacity that they've known me and how long they have known me for. And so again, I want to draw your attention to this part, this paragraph that really delves into like my undergraduate project, which I went on to publish. So if you watch my previous video where I talked about my winning essays, you would know that one of the challenges that I talked about in that essay is, you know, how, you know, my undergraduate thesis was challenging resource wise and how I overcame it and that sort of thing. And so it really helps that my reference is able to corroborate that yes, I had such a wonderful thesis and I went on to publish a paper from that. And apart from that, they are also like emphasizing on like my intellectual and academic achievements about like being best graduating student. So again, you want to choose people who can speak to specific things and also corroborate other things you're seeing in other parts of your application. Again, I'm going for a graduate level program. So here they're telling that I am someone who can produce positive results with minimum supervision because at the graduate level, that is what is required, right? And if you go on to the last paragraph, besides my academic achievements, I'm someone who has volunteered a lot and has given back to the community and also buttress further on how like, you know, investing in me would be like an asset to the nation, an asset to any organization I belong to. Because again, the reference knows that this is going to be sponsored by a scholarship body that's passionate about like giving back and people being assets to wherever they find themselves in the future. So that is why, again, it is very important that you're providing your references as much context as possible so that they can tailor appropriately. I want you to start thinking of your references as, you know, supporting actors to your story. So you have your essays and your CV, and your references should be able to reinforce that story. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, of course, share with a friend. And if you have any questions about references, put them in the comment and I'll be happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can look through my previous videos where I share like my winning scholarship essays, as well as how you can write an academic CV. In my next video, I will be breaking down some of the key factors that students should consider when choosing academic programs, as well as, you know, the kind of best courses that you should always look out for based on the country and your long-term immigration status. See ya.